Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all here, and welcome to our first matchmaking event of the Smart Cities Marketplace in 2021. And since it's the first, there will be many more, we hope. But this one is a special one, I think, since we are now, for the first time and finally, concentrating on the work being done under the action clusters and initiatives of the Smart Cities Marketplace. And that's both, it was about time to do that, and it's a great opportunity to see all the great work, seeing finally an opportunity to be financed with opportunities offered by our matchmaking services and our investor community. So it's great that you are here, you are in the right place, and it's my pleasure to guide you through today's program. And excuse me. And so we have indeed a full program, and I would also invite you to, whenever possible, use please the Slido box on the screen if you want to make comments, ask questions. If you have an issue or anything, just use the Slido box, and you see the code now being shown underneath. So use that code to interact with us on Slido, and your questions will be picked up one after another, and we will try to answer them all if possible. Now, so what's on today for this first matchmaking event? And I think we have a nice program prepared for you, and I'm just waiting for my dear colleagues from the marketplace to show us that program on the screen so I can guide you through it. So here we go. You see, we have let's say two groups of parallel workshops, one in the morning and one group in the afternoon. We will have short networking and lunch break in order to sort of break the day a bit apart, so that you're not running from one meeting to the other, but that you have also a bit time to digest what you have heard and seen. So as said, in the morning 3, in the afternoon 2, followed by a quick wrap up, and so we can have a bit of a chat on what actually has been done today, and what is the outcome, and what should be expected actually afterwards. Of course, there will be the project pitches also in the afternoon, which is another interesting part of the program. And these project pitches obviously prepare the financing afterwards. And there will be a judgment of these project pitches. So we are all very curious what the judgment will be. And these 3 judges, I already welcome them now. This is Alice Daniela Torres from the Covenant of Mayors Europe office. We have Ilko Kröchinger from DNV GL, one of our matchmakers. And we have Rudi Roth from Gemeente Amsterdam. So an experienced, I shall say, smart cities jury. And they will have a look at those project pitches and will let us know what they think. So that's also quite thrilling and interesting, I guess. And that will sort of round up the day. And then finally, when we reach the end of the day, we'll hopefully all have learned something. We'll have the next steps in mind and a better idea on how we make sense of all these great ideas around in the initiatives and action clusters of the Smart Cities Marketplace. So I'm very pleased to be here. I'm looking forward to all what we are going to develop, discover during the day. And now I would like actually to tell you also to those maybe who joined this meeting or this conference while not being totally active in the initiatives or action clusters, I would like to show you what matchmaking is actually about. So what is it actually what we're talking about all the time? What is matchmaking in the end? And I've prepared a few humble slides for that, which are now shown on screen. Let me just quickly switch to my own control screen here so I can flip them. So what you see here is, of course, the cover screen, so we'll change that quickly. So matchmaking, what is it? Now, essentially, what we want to do is deliver a pipeline of smart city projects in the end. So smart city projects which ideally cover a whole lot of the smart cities ecosystems, and that's energy, transport, mobility, that's digital solutions, but that's also maybe circular economy, that's environmental aspects, that's waste and water, heating and cooling, and you name it. So what we try to do here is to support European policies, the European plan, and I'm speaking here about the EU Green Deal, for example, the renovation wave, the mission on cities and other things, which are now happening on EU level. We try to support that with financing from private sources. So that's it. That's the target. We want to accelerate and support the European process with private money and your project ideas, essentially. Now, definition. Well, practically spoken, what we try to do is we match a project proposal, that is a consortium or a project promoter, a city, a company, with the interest of the marketplace's investor network. So essentially matching the idea with money. And of course, there's some parts in between I will show you in a minute. And then the purpose is to replicate good practices. Now, why do I say that? Because we have 18 lighthouse projects in the portfolio, if you want. We have a lot of ideas coming from the initiatives of the Smart Cities Marketplace, on which we will focus today. But overall, there is plenty of ideas, plenty of existing projects, which we would love to help replicating and upscaling. And that is, well, maybe essentially the purpose, to really get to a mass rollout of these green and low carbon solutions for cities, to make cities more livable, to get them closer to the climate neutrality postulated by the Green Deal. And then, yeah, finally, financing sources. We have two, to be honest here. I mean, we have two obvious ones. One is the funding streams which come from the EU, which we are not ignoring, but maybe we should say that with the operations of the Smart Cities Marketplace matchmaking, we supplement that, we support that. So we try to fill the gaps which are left by the funding, because as a matter of fact, funding cannot cover the whole market uptake cycle. Funding can only trigger that and get this rolling. And so the financing we try to establish here is picking this up and supplementing it to an extent that it becomes really a market choice. Well, that is what is matchmaking. Now let's have a look how it works. And that's rather easy, or rather, yeah, easy to understand. We have three phases: explore, shape, deal. First phase, see and learn what's next. That's explore. So essentially, you have a wealth of possibilities, of ideas, of projects which have already been delivered, which you can pick up, or only parts of that, and you just think about implementing or replicating or upscaling that in your own city with your own company or your consortium. The next step is shape. That's actually where we try to fill the gap between the idea and the actual match at the end. So of course you have to go through some work to fine-tune the project idea to make it truly bankable. You do a risk assessment, you see what is the DNA of that project, what might happen while I implement the project, and so on. All these questions which you need to ask yourself when you want to be serious about actually implementing a project. And that's also essential for the last phase, which is the deal phase, when you get actually in touch with the banks, the investors, when you really get to terms on how to finance your project idea. But at this stage, don't worry, it is already shaped to an extent that the investors you are invited with are having that interest. So it fulfills the basic principles for these investors to get interested. And just as nice to know, by now, since 2018, we have this matchmaking process in place. Since then, we have matched roughly 130 projects, being worth roughly 600 million euro of investments. We have matched that with the interests of our investor network. So you see, it does make sense, it works, and I'm very happy that you have joined us today to explore your project ideas and to see how far we can get with financing those. And with this, I'm actually at the end of this little lessons in matchmaking and would ask Lynn to join us on the stage. And Lynn will tell us a bit about the practical issues. What are the fact sheets? So how are we actually going about digesting your ideas and shaping them into something which is then in the end bankable and financeable? Lynn, please join us on stage and let us know what you have to say about fact sheets. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Josh. So first of all, also welcome from my side. We've had a massive number of subscriptions for this event, so that shows that there's really an interest in what we do. I would like to really encourage your active participation throughout the day. We will, as Georg said, for the first time, bring together a selection of different stakeholders, so people that have voluntarily worked in the action clusters for years on very interesting topics, with also people from cities, people from solution providers, and other stakeholders. So it will be a diverse public, a diverse audience that will today jointly work on moving from the prepared fact sheets to finalized fact sheets and to business cases to present them later on today to our jury in pitches. It's not just a moment that we've chosen. I think what Georg already said, the link with the Green Deal, the renovation wave, the mission on cities is very important. But also at the national level, countries now have the potential to use the recovery budgets to accelerate the energy transition in their different member states. And this gives, of course, a massive number of opportunities to develop the solutions that we might present and move them to the cities, but also maybe to develop local ecosystems and bring that up to create local jobs and create real recovery in our economy. Because it's not just about the transition, it's about the transition that is inclusive, that creates sustainable jobs and helps us also in the energy transition. The idea of the fact sheets started when we were working on a joint project about a year ago, and we discovered that every stakeholder needs a different kind of information, and we need to present it that in such a way that it's attractive and digestible for each of the stakeholders. The case at that moment was a neighborhood battery, but it was applicable, the concept was applicable to what we're going to do today, to the selection of topics that the action clusters have presented. So what the fact sheets are, they're actually a short description of what the innovation or the concept is that we would like to present, what the benefits are for the stakeholders, and a first idea of the cost and the return of investment. But during this event, we will dive into the aspects of the business model in more detail. And by having that diverse number of stakeholders, we will be able to really cooperate and deliver a strong, a robust business model that we can pitch then afterwards to our critical jury members that we've selected with care. You will see later on when we present them before they come in the afternoon, that they all have complementary expertise, but that they all have a massive amount of experience, not only from the cities or the countries they live in, but from the vast majority of European landscape. So that's where I think if we really prepare in our sessions this afternoon these business cases really well, then we will be able to really move forward these ideas and get closer to that matchmaking principle. We've already, for this session, or for today, or for the event, we have 79 accepted networking meetings. So that really means that the different stakeholders are engaged to get to know more, either from a city to understand what their solution should be translated such that it becomes really attractive or investable for a city, but also from cities to understand what the different solutions could mean. So during this event, we're going to help you, we're going to guide you, but the main ambassadors of today, or the main people in the center of today, are the people from the action clusters, and we would like to thank them as the Smart Cities Marketplace also for having worked very hard to make this event happen, to prepare it really well, and to showcase the work that sometimes they've been working on for months and even longer. So I wish you all a very, very good event, and thank you already for your enthusiasm and to make this one happen.
Yes, thank you very much, Lynn. And yeah, I can only repeat what you said. I mean, it's really on the action clusters. The limelight is on the action clusters initiative today to really shed some light on what they did, what splendid work they delivered, and really now it's about time to match that with some financing support to really make it happen, to have a blueprint maybe from within the SCM community, which would be fantastic. That's actually also what I was always dreaming about, getting this finally to work really. And how, I mean, we have another person in this on stage soon, and that is going to be. Thank you first of all, thank you, Lane, for these explanations and for your insights. I would now ask to Judith Bosboom van Beurden to come to the stage. And Judith is our Action Cluster Coordinator, Action Cluster Initiative Coordinator. Judith, you have been, or you are in fact, an initiative leader yourself, actually. So we all know the famous Smart Cities Guidance Package. But then you dare to take yet another job, which is the Action Cluster Coordinator. And today, we have Judith with us, who will also, of course, emphasize that today is on the action clusters, the initiatives. And Judith, with no further ado, floor is yours. Tell us, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Georg. And also from my side, everybody, a very warm welcome. I'm here in the Netherlands. I'm based in the Netherlands. Today we have quite a festive spirit here because it's our King's Day. And that's a day that usually we eat special cakes, we drink orange brandy, and we have a lot of outdoor festivals and parties. Unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, it's not possible to have these outdoor events. But nevertheless, I hope that this very positive, festive and orange spirit will also translate to the event we have today. I see that we have, there's a lot of energy, was a lot of energy in the last week to prepare with the community, with the action cluster chairs, with the initiative leads, all the topics for today that we hope that will work to be translated into new projects in future. So I would like to explain a bit what is an action cluster for those who are not that familiar with that, so you have a bit more of background. Let me see. Is this? Yes. Yes. So as you may know, the matchmaking is very much at the heart of the Smart Cities Marketplace, because we hope that all the good things that have happened, all the fantastic examples from the Lighthouse project, but also from many, many other projects that have been done in the field of smart cities, that these good examples are replicated wider throughout Europe and also wider across the world. And for that reason, the Smart Cities Marketplace is one-stop shop. And we hope that everybody who wants to bring solutions to the market, or who wants to replicate the best practices, the good examples, or adopt those smart solutions, goes to the Smart Cities Marketplace. And the action clusters are a very important element of that. It's the heart of our community. And these are people with very different backgrounds, can be from industry, can be from city administrations, research, NGOs, city networks, other backgrounds, but they all work together to take away the barriers towards upscaling and replication, to disseminate all the knowledge we have. And also we hope today that we will define new projects. The Explore Shape deal, it was already presented by Lane. So the action clusters play a very important role in all of these stages because they are a very important element in replicating the knowledge or sharing the knowledge. They are experts themselves. They have been part of projects. They have started projects, have initiated projects, so they have a lot of knowledge. But they also help to shape new projects and to shape the right preconditions for wider implementation of smart city solutions. And today we hope to make the step to also set up a couple of new projects, if possible, around the topics that have been carefully selected. So the action cluster structure is coming from the strategic implementation plan that was developed a couple of years ago. And in the strategic implementation plan, we had a couple of pillars and we had a couple of vertical actions. And the pillars were more focusing on the specific technologies, on specific domains, for example, the built environment or urban mobility and logistics, or the IT aspects of integrated infrastructures. And the vertical ones were more focusing on shaping the right preconditions. So this is a very interesting diagram because it shows what you need to bring about a smart city in a good way. Because you cannot do this without engagement of your citizens, you cannot do this without proper business models, and you cannot do this without setting up the right processes that deploy a holistic approach. So this figure, although it's already from some years ago, it's still highly relevant because it translates itself also in the sorry, trying to put up the new slide, but for some reason I don't see it. It translates it also self in the structure of our action clusters. So you see we have 6 main action clusters. So I just start on the top and then I go clockwise. We have an action cluster on citizen focus. We have one on integrated planning, policy and regulations. One on sustainable districts and built environment that focuses more on the buildings, a building site. We have one on sustainable urban mobility that focuses on transport, logistics, accessibility, intelligent transport systems, etc. We have one on integrated infrastructures and processes that focuses more on IT aspects, interoperability, Internet of Things, etc. And we have an action cluster on business models. All these action clusters, you can link them directly to the figure I just showed you. And on subtopics, we have the so-called initiatives. So that are smaller groups within an action cluster that work together on specific topics and subtopics within the action cluster. And quite recently, we had a lot of new activities, so that's really, really good. We have a new initiative, for example, under citizen focus on citizen control of personal data, which is a very interesting topic. How can you give back value to the people who share their personal data, and how do they get grip on their own personal data? So it's not only big companies that profit from that. So this is really very interesting. Within the action cluster integrated planning, policy and regulations, we had a new initiative on regulatory frameworks, which is very interesting because this is a very important showstopper in many smart city projects, that things are not allowed or are not cannot access a specific market because there are not the right norms, or the legislation might not be in place to allow specific applications. So there's a lot of things to do there, also regarding energy markets, etc. In the action cluster Sustainable Districts and Built Environment, we recently had 2 new initiatives, Heating and Cooling Networks and Nature-Based Cities. And in the action cluster integrated infrastructures and processes, we have a new initiative on geospatial cities that focuses in particular on the potential of Earth observation data for all kinds of smart city applications. Can be smart water management. It can be detection of potential for solar energy. So a lot of new things. And lastly, we have new initiatives within the action cluster on business models, financing platforms, and one on city wisdom, and a new initiative in the making, which will soon be there. So we have an enormous variety of topics, as you can see, and this is really an important asset to the Smart Cities Marketplace, because we have a lot of people that are tremendously knowledgeable on all these topics, and also work together with these different backgrounds on overcoming the barriers and trying to advance the case of smart city solutions. So, sorry, I work with two screens and it's sometimes a bit... So what do the action cluster do? Now, before we had a lot of physical events, BC, as my kids say, before Corona, and we hope that we can return to these physical events soon, as we are all vaccinated. But nevertheless, until that time, we have to stick to the online events. So we have meetings, webinars, workshops. Some people, some action clusters initiatives produced kind of guidance papers or green and white papers. Other ones work on capacity building, transfer of knowledge. For example, in the action cluster on citizen focus, there is an idea to set up a training that's currently being worked on, but it's also about identifying issues and development of the knowledge and the know-how to overcome these issues. Sorry, I have to switch to the other screen, otherwise I lose my... So here you see some examples of work from the initiatives and the action clusters. For example, the initiative on urban air mobility. They are exploring at the moment with a network of cities and regions what are the possibilities for transport of goods and persons by drones. There are already prototypes by industry, but if you are going to do this in cities, for example, for emergency services or transport of important goods, think, for example, about vaccines, what do you need to have in place? There are a lot of regulations, and this group is working on seeing what needs to be done, what are the obstacles that you meet, and how to overcome them. As mentioned, we had also recently, a few months ago, a very nice presentation, a very nice webinar of geospatial cities, where we had a lot of good examples of the Earth observation data, and that were shared, and that really gave a lot of good insights how to make better use of the Earth observation that are already there, because these satellites are flying all over the time. All the time. So this is a continuous stream of real-time information that can be very interesting, for example, also for mobility and logistics. Another example is the Citizen Engagement Solution booklet. So this was really a very nice collaboration between the Smart City Information System and the Citizen Focus Action Clusters and a couple of other experts. And that resulted in a very nice booklet that gives examples how to work with your citizens in the right way. And lastly, to mention the Smart City Guidance Package, already nearly 2 years old, where we developed a kind of ideal process for implementation of smart city solutions. So these are all examples of work, of activities that have been done within the action clusters and initiatives. So how can you participate? For those who are not yet a member, you can subscribe to an action cluster. You also can subscribe only to a specific initiative. You have to go to the website. You have to go to the community tab, and there if you are going to the action cluster or to the initiative that you are interested in, you see an address and you can send an email to this address. Maybe in future we will have a kind of register button again there, but that's still in progress. Till that time, you just can send an email, and the colleagues of Vito will scan these emails, because sometimes there are a lot of trolls sending us emails and this has to be checked, but the ones that are valid are then accepted and passed through to the action cluster chairs. So this is how you can join. Just go to the website, send the email, and then you end up in our databases of the action cluster members and the initiative members. So I think that's basically it. If there is any question, please put them in the chat or send me an email, drop me an email, and you are very welcome to go to our SmartSmiths Marketplace website and become a member of one of our action clusters to help us advance the good work that has already been done, but we know that we also have to do more to really achieve the climate and energy goals as they are stated now. So thank you very much. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Georg again for introducing the next speaker. Thank you.
Georg, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself? You have to. Just a second, Georg. Can you? You are still muted? Could you just try again?
Yes, great. I'm muted.
Now we can hear you.
It happens all the time with teleconferences, as we see. So, first apology for being muted, obviously. And what I wanted to say, I will now try the third time, is actually that we are not even halfway the event. And I already just need to apologize. So apologies go to all the Dutch participants here, because I'm actually connected from the Dutch border, right from the Dutch border, guys. And I totally forgot about Koningsdag. So to all the Dutch participants, you are really brave to join us. And we should be even more thankful, more grateful for those ones who are joining from the Netherlands. And that's really great. And that's, yeah, true dedication, I'd say, true commitment. So super. Just wanted to say that before I forget. Another point is, Judith, if I may add, there is also, I'm not anticipating, of course, further information on that, but there is even another initiative already in the pipeline in the business cluster, business models cluster, action cluster. And that's an initiative on pre-commercial procurement. And I think this is also a very interesting candidate, a lot to expect from that. I think that more information will soon be available. So that's yet another reason to get involved, to join us, and to stay tuned. And one way of staying tuned without getting too engaged, if you don't want that, is actually subscribing to our newsletter. So that's another way of staying connected to us. And so with this, I would like to call also Georges now to the stage. Thank you again, Judith. Georges will actually tell us a bit more about the actual nitty-gritty process of what happens to the fact sheets and how do we shape them into something which, and in the end, gets financing via our investors. And before I give the floor to you, Georges, at this stage, although we didn't see any of those, Also, thanks go to our investors, of course, because without the investors, this whole matchmaking concept wouldn't make much sense, indeed. So at this stage, also a big thanks to our investors who have supported this matchmaking idea and process since 2018. I think we have a lot of success already and are looking forward to the next steps. So Josh, floor is yours. Let us know more about fact sheets and what you are going to do with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Georg, and welcome everyone. And thank you for being here and allow me to share my experience on the matchmaking. So what I will be is talking about the matchmaking and how the process flows. For that, I have a short presentation that I would like to share with you. So basically, we have heard that the Smart Cities Marketplace help from the explore, shape, and deal phases. So we can provide you with knowledge in these different stages, but I'm going to focus on the deal part of the matchmaking, of the marketplace, sorry, which is the matchmaking. And how does it work? So basically, we have developed a short intake form that when you have a project, you can fill the intake form with all the information that is relevant, and this will be the basis of the matchmaking. Now, on this event, there will be some smaller fact sheets that are equivalent to the intake forms. So basically, they will also feed this intake form. So the idea is that you have all the information about your project collected in one form that is able to be the basis of your pitch with the investor. And then what we do is that basically we check what is the level of maturity of your project. And on my last slide, I will explain one main reason for this. And so the maturity level of the projects can go from just a project concept to a project that is really ready to go to be launched or sign the tender. So depending on the different stages, there will be steps that you need to do towards the bankability. The bankability is a word that we say a lot on the financial world. That means that the project is ready to be investable. So the idea here is that you go step by step, improving your project towards this bankability. So I will try to give you now some typical improvements of the projects that we get. So we get a lot of projects in each of the matchmaking events, but some of those need a little bit more work to become bankable, or at least to become in a way that can be presented to the investors to start all that process. So the typical improvements, one relevant is the lack of detail. So what we recommend to everyone is that you detail your concept project. So you go there and provide all the information that is available, background, details on the investments that you will do. If there are two types of investments, if you are going to invest first in the digital twin and then on the infrastructure, you have to clarify that in the intake for the investor to understand your idea, your concept, and what is the investment related with. Also, it's relevant that you try to detail and monetize all the benefits. So if you have healthcare benefits, air quality benefits, all the other benefits should be stressed in the intake. It's quite relevant, and Lynn was talking about it also on her presentation about the business case and business model. So it's really relevant that the project has a good and strong business model that is easy to understand, because that will be what the investors will look for. So the investors with actually their goal is to have a project with long-term stable cash flows. That's not always possible to have this long-term and stable, but at least we should stress what is the business model, what are the cash flows generated by your project. And I put it here as a last point, but probably it's one of the first points, is that you make sure that your project is aligned with the city vision and also with all the relevant stakeholders' interests. So you must make sure that all parties are aligned in your process. And last but not least, I want to give I took an example of investment criteria from one of our investors from the investor network. Just opened their webpage and saw this investment criteria. And the investment criteria is operating assets or ready to build assets. This means that they are looking for projects that have a high maturity level. That means that they are ready to be operated or to be built, which doesn't mean that they will not like to engage with you on a lower stage of the process, but this is just for you to understand that this is the investment criteria. So if you can give them information that links directly to the operation of the assets or to how the assets will be built and how close you are to this process, this is very, very relevant for all the investors. So after all of this process, all of these improvements, you will get feedback from our side. We will exchange some emails or some phone calls, in some cases doing some calls also online. When we think that the intake form is ready to be matched with the investors, we will try to set up meetings with the investors. Basically, we check the requirements from the investor community. We check what you have on your intake. If there is a match, we will try to link you and do everything that we can to go forward with those meetings. And who are the investor communities? You have here their logos. This community is growing. We also have a bank that recently joined. So this community is growing, and they do finance different types of assets, different types of projects, going from district energy to solar, urban or building renovations, mobility. So a lot of different types of investments that they do. Mainly they are infrastructure investments, meaning that they would like to invest in infrastructure projects, but they do have different ticket size. That means that they invest from small to big projects, because some of those have very big minimum investment level, but others have lower. So that we will try to fit you with the best one for your project. Also, I would like to stress that on our website there is a lot of information that you can check. As I used to say, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have booklets with different solutions. The solutions booklets will provide you support for your idea, information that is relevant. Also, you can see that the webinars that we have recorded, for instance, on the due diligence or risk assessment, which are quite financial oriented, but they are quite relevant when you design your project, so that you make sure that the investor will understand it. Also, and this is quite relevant, we learned that there are some few steps that are relevant for most of the projects. So we invite everyone to attend our Smart Cities Roadmap Masterclass, where we try to bring to the table some key or some leading investors and cities that will share their experience, their requirements, and then we will discuss with you one by one with your project, see how we can help your project to become bankable. So this is a masterclass where you can bring your own project, and we will be working on it through the process. And even after the masterclasses ends, there is always the opportunity to have one-to-one meetings with our team, and we will try to help you bring your project to the market to the level of the bankability. For that, just send us an email for our email, and we will put you in waiting list, because actually this has been a success, and we have a reservation list with all the names, and we are just every time that we open, we go there, and it's a first come first served basis. So I told you that I would explain why the maturity level is quite relevant, and this is my last slide, so I don't want to take you a lot of time. And why is that so relevant for us to understand what is the maturity, and for you to understand the difference between what we are talking about. So what we say is that there are different maturity levels that can go from the potential project that has been identified. You will start collecting the information and do quantifying the investment, trying to estimate the savings, business models, all of that. Then you move for the technical details of it until the bankability or opening the tender. And what we think is that grants, they are quite helpful at the beginning when you do the viability study, all of those studies. So grants, for instance, from the Recovery and Resilience Facility, they are quite relevant for this process because they will help you to set up your project. But then what we think is that it's quite relevant to bring to the table other players. And in this case, I stress it here, infrastructure funds, but could be any kind of fund managers, because they like to enter on an early stage, not too early, not on when you just have an idea, but when you have quantified and have start thinking about your business models. They like to work with you and help you to make sure that your project is designed in the way that they can invest later on. So it's good for you to bring them to the table at this stage. And then just a bit of the difference here. For instance, commercial banks, which are also investors, they usually only would like to be called to the table right when you have all things set for the launching of the tender, because usually they don't provide you with such feedback during the process. It's not the way that they work. So there is a big difference here between these infrastructure investors and other investors, and for instance with the banks, because there is this homework that they like to do to make sure that everything is ready, the business models are clear, and they will be able to invest in the process in the future when you launch the tender. So basically that is my presentation, and just to make sure that I repeat this, all the work that is going to be done today will be a source of information for the matchmaking, and we hope that we are able to match these wonderful projects that we have in pipeline with our investor community, and in a shorter term to see those projects in the ground implemented. Thank you. Now, Georg, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. And I would also like to, first of all, thank you for all these explanations. And I think what has been said maybe over the past few years, that we always said that the action clusters are where the strategic directions happen, where the new ideas are emerging, and that the initiatives are, in a way, the projects of the Smart Cities Marketplace. So that's where, let's say, the action on the ground is supposed to happen. I would now also like to welcome back Judith and Lane on stage, so that we can answer a few questions which were passed to us in the meantime. That would also be then closing this opening session. So there was a general question about how would somebody join the marketplace with a new initiative, generally spoken. Well, there is plenty of ways to do that. I think what Judith has already showed you a way of doing that by simply getting in touch. So you just ask whether you could join an existing initiative or an existing action cluster to get engaged and to co-design, co-shape the work of that action cluster initiative. That's one way to do it. Another way is, if you have an idea, to launch a new initiative, to, for example, add more value to what the marketplace does, or if you think there is an area which is truly missing and should, it deserves a bit more action and more networking and more knowledge and replication potential brought to the context, then you simply launch a new one. The process there is rather simple. So you suggest that initiative to the marketplace team. Ideally, you already come with an idea on the actual implementation, so a bit of a time plan, a roadmap, what you want to achieve by when, and which are the main stakeholders, because every initiative should come with a chairperson or a team really dealing with it and taking care about it, because the marketplace is essentially the playground. So the marketplace team will help you to get most out of your initiative, and will also then, in the end, and that's the purpose of this event, try to match your activities on the ground with potential financing from our investor network. So this is pretty much how it works. And there's a third thing in the pipeline, and I would recommend you to read the actual charter of the Smart Cities Marketplace. There you will find all the definitions of the roles, what everyone is supposed to do, and what is expected, and so on. And there is also a famous a call for interest mentioned in this very charter. So what we are aiming to do, yet to be seen when exactly this will happen, but there's a likelihood would still happen, let's say in the second half of this year, is that we launch a call for interest, both for action clusters and initiatives, in order to see whether we can enrich the current landscape of action clusters and initiatives with some fresh ideas, also fresh people. Not to say that the people around are not fresh enough, so don't get me wrong, but it's really to add value to see whether there is stuff we might be missing simply. I mean, aspects which we might be missing and which are truly adding value to the overall idea of smart cities, also connecting it more with mission. So I hope this has kind of answered the question, and I would simply ask Josh, Judith, do you want to add something? Is there anything I might have forgotten? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think it would, what you mentioned briefly, Georg, I think everybody who has a good idea is always welcome at the Smart Cities Marketplace. Nevertheless, it would be good to make the idea a bit substantial in, for example, producing a concept note, so it's for everybody easier also to understand what you really want to achieve, and also not only include a timeline, but also the concrete results that you would like to achieve in the end, because everybody is working on a voluntary basis, and everybody has to do this on top of your normal work and your normal activities. So while we are, of course, very ambitious, it also should be realistic. So that's also one of the things that we will check and discuss with you if you have a proposal. And also in the end, we also will ensure that there's formal approval from the side of the European Commission that this is really one of the topics that we think can bring benefit to the marketplace. So it sounds maybe like a difficult ballotage. That's not the question, but just to be sure that we expect from we know from each other what to expect and what to do and how to make this going to fly in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith. Josh, anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I just want to add the relevance of the action clusters and the initiatives for the whole process, because there is a lot of knowledge that is gathered there, and this knowledge is to be used by the community. So this is quite relevant, because you don't find this such knowledgeable team with different backgrounds and different stakeholders and different topics together in one group. So this is very relevant and even for the matchmaking process, because as I tried to stress, it's really relevant when you design a project that you integrate all the different views. And those views can be quite different from the different stakeholders. So sometimes it's not easy to integrate everything, but that's why this process exists, where you can discuss them and try to integrate it in a way. I don't know if you saw, Georg, but there was a question about the masterclass
We'll pick that now.
Okay.
Well, pick that now. So there was also a question regarding the urban agenda. Maybe I try to answer both of them. How would you join the masterclass? Really simple. First of all, register to it. Secondly, you might want to get in touch with the matchmakers, one of which we have here with Josh. It's actually matchmaking at eu-smartcities.eu. Very simple. You drop an email to them and ask them what are the prerequisites to join the masterclass. Of course, it would be helpful if you have an idea on what you want to actually engage with, or what's your project you have in mind, because that helps adding value also to yourself when you join the masterclass, when you come with a concrete idea. If you don't have a concrete idea, the masterclass is a bit like, interesting, but it doesn't add immediate value to what you do. So it is, of course, helpful if you have some sort of idea what you want to engage with. Then there was the second question about the urban agenda. Well, I can say that generally spoken, the Smart Cities Marketplace is trying to connect to possibly all initiatives out there on the EU level. That's Living in EU, that's the Covenant of Mayors, that's Civitas, to just name a few, really. There's way more out there. The idea is really to make sense out of it and to really bring all these different aspects together in order to match them potentially with financing and to support EU-level policies such as the Green Deal, the Renovation Wave, and the famous Cities Mission mentioned at the beginning. So really trying to make it a full circle, and also trying to give a springboard sort of access to stakeholders so that they don't have to search for a long time. They get what they need with a mouse click, essentially. We are not yet there, of course, you will see that, but that's, let's say, what we are working on to sort of make
Georg, you seem to have some audio problem. Can you maybe mute and unmute again? Not yet.
Yeah, I see.
Now,
Thank you.
now I can hear you. I can hear you again.
So I don't know what you missed from my past few sentences. Anyhow, it's now time to move on, I guess. The platform was playing tricks at me with my mute and unmute button, obviously. Nevertheless, so as concerns initiatives, new initiatives, get in touch with the team. As concerns the masterclass, the overall matchmaking process, any questions you might have, address them directly to the matchmaking team. Josh is here. You can also chat with him during the day or drop an email even today. We will take care of that and also possibly answer your questions during the course of today, of this event, of course. And now I would like to guide over to the next important point, which is the break. No, just kidding. The next important point in the program is, of course, the parallel workshops. The first part of which we will have starting at 11:15. So you would have plenty of time to pick a coffee, get prepared for that one. And so we would see back each other at 11:15 in the respective parallel workshops. And there will be another pack of workshops starting at 13:30 after our lunch break. And finally, at the very end of today, we will also have a nice wrap-up session to see what came out of this great opportunity, this interesting day full of discussion, full of workshops, full of fact sheets. And so what's left for me is actually that I wish you all success, a lot of insights, and that you really enjoy this day full of new opportunities. Good that you are here, and see you back this afternoon. Thank you very much. Bye.